high cost of fast fashion.
A lot of people just throw their old clothing in the garbage.
Although cheap fast fashion is taking its toll on the environment.
Environmentally, the fashion industry is As a climate reporter who really likes clothes, I'm in kind of a weird position because I want to wear all the cool stuff that I see on my Instagram feed. But I also know that fashion poses tons of environmental problems. There's the waste the industry creates, there's pollution from treatments and dyes and chemicals, and then there's a big oil problem. In this first episode of Worn Out, we're talking about how much dirty fuel is used to make our clothes. You probably don't realize it, but there's a good chance that you're wearing fossil fuels right now. And I don't mean just little buttons and zippers. I'm talking about the actual fabrics. Polyester is a plastic that's widely used in the textile industry. And like all plastics, it's made from crude oil. I don't think of fossil fuels as particularly integral to my personal style or anything. I wanted to see for myself. So I rummaged around in my closet, and it turns out there's a lot of oil in there. 95% polyester, that's an oil-based fabric, and 5% spandex, also an oil-based fabric. Research shows that 60% of the clothes we wear today are made of oil and gas. And that's twice as many plastic-based fibers as we were wearing in 2000, which means that the carbon footprint associated with clothes production is getting a lot bigger. Like, the fossil fuels that it takes to manufacture just one polyester shirt emits 12 pounds of CO2. Scientists have made it clear that we need to completely stop polluting carbon in order to avert catastrophic climate change. But when it comes to clothes, we're actually moving in the wrong direction. In fact, if the fashion industry keeps ramping up its plastic clothing production, in 2050, it will emit the same amount of carbon as driving a car 10 billion miles. And all that oil extraction has local impacts too. To learn about those, I'm gonna call up Yinka Bode-George. She works on plastic legislation.
Hi Darna, how are you doing?
Hi Yinka, what's up? I have a few questions. Could you help me out?
Sure, here to help.
So what are some of the environmental effects of extracting oil to turn into clothes?
Extracting these materials, extracting the fuel, has a number of human health and ecological impacts, of course. Historically, what happens when these crude oil extracting facilities, accidentally leak oil into our ecosystems and our marine ecosystems. We've seen what happens when exports in proximity to communities, how that can cause a number of cancer burdens, chronic diseases, and things like that.
Yeah, we don't hear that much about how deeply entwined the oil industry is with the fashion industry.
So when a lot of people think about fossil fuels and crude oil, they often connect it to energy sources. So heating your home, using your car. We don't do a good enough job of making the connection to its use in plastic production. And even manufacturing textiles. The origins of plastic materials and other synthetic, textile materials are in crude oil and fossil fuels.
And maybe you're thinking, I don't buy polyester clothes, so this doesn't really apply to me. Yeah, well, what about nylon and spandex and acrylic? Those are all made of plastic, meaning they're all made of oil. In fact, the world uses 342 million barrels of oil a year to make clothes. And I don't just mean garments that are 100% made of plastic either, like a full polyester suit or 100% spandex yoga pants. Like sometimes a wool sweater will have a little elastane in it. 64% cotton, 24% acrylic, oil, 12% polyamide. I looked it up, polyamide is also oil. Earlier, I had a chat with Laura Balmond. She works on sustainability in fashion at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and she said manufacturers do put all those fossil fuels in clothes for a reason.
You mentioned a wool sweater. Often it will be blended with other fabrics because either it will help reduce it from shrinking if you wash it. People want to be able to throw it in the washing machine and wash it at home. They don't want dry clean items. So again, it's there for a reason.
Mixing fossil fuels into clothes can make them cheaper, but it comes at a huge environmental cost, because it can make them basically impossible to recycle.
So for example, the fact that we currently mix a number of different materials together, whether that's cotton with elastane with polyester, The processes we have today are not designed to be able to create a good quality product from that. So already, because of our choices of materials, it's getting harder and harder to recycle the products into something good afterwards.
And then there's another problem, microplastic. That's teeny tiny little pieces of plastic pollution. One scientific study last year found that most of the microplastic on the world's ocean floors isn't coming from broken down soda bottles or plastic shopping bags, but from synthetic plastic-based fibers. Microplastics from our clothes are even showing up in the Arctic and raining down on national parks. I know this is a lot to digest, and at this point you're probably wondering, can you even buy clothes that don't heat up the planet to produce? Well, you could buy clothes made of natural fibers like cotton or even hemp, yeah, like the weed plant, but the kind that doesn't get you high. Producing those clothes does have a way smaller carbon footprint, but it still takes up crucial natural resources like land and water. But we can't buy our way out of this problem. We can't just start buying stuff that's made of other kinds of materials and expect the problem to go away. We have to regulate the fossil fuel industry out of existence.
When we talk about these issues, there's often a push to get consumer behavior to shift to better acknowledge and address single-use culture. But the reality is, as consumers, we can only do so much. So what we're doing is working with legislators so that they can introduce bills that tackle the zero waste and the plastic pollution issue comprehensively. You know, there's something to be said about ending new plastic materials from being produced, but what are we going to do with the existing plastic materials, right? It's so important to recognize that this issue it's not sort of a one bullet solution. We really have to think about the variety of strategies necessary from the upstream to the downstream. All of these things are necessary to shift away from this culture of disposability.
But oil isn't fashion's only dirty secret. To learn about another one, tune back into the next episode of Worn Out.